Good morning. I am Chrissy Bushegger. I'm the director of Faith Formation, and my pronouns are she, her. I have a story this morning. It comes from a collection called Ancient Stories for Modern Times by Faye Morganson, and it goes like this. Talia was an old woman. You could tell she was an old woman because it took her a little while to move from place to place. Her bones ached, her body ached. But there was a sparkle in her eyes, and she lit up when she was around her friends and family. She wanted to do anything she could for her friends and family. Perhaps you know someone like that. Perhaps you are someone like that. So Talia spent most of her days sitting in a chair by a big window that overlooked her backyard, her garden, the trees. I'm moving because there's a little buzz over there. She sat in her window overlooking the garden, and on the nice days, she would open the window. She could hear the sound of the birds. She could hear the sound of the birds. Oh, good. Very good, excellent. Oh, lots of birds, cool. Sometimes when friends visited, they would sit with her by the window and she would talk about her life. She would talk about all the joy she had. She would talk about all the gratitude she had for what she had experienced in her life. And when no one was around, she would still sit in her chair and she would think about her life, how happy she was. And it was on such a day when she was by herself and she was reflecting and she was sitting by the window and she could hear the birds. She had an idea. It was kind of a wild idea for Talia to have, I'll be honest. But she had this idea and she decided she was going to go for it. She stood up, she walked very slowly over to her phone. She made a phone call. And a little while later, a delivery person arrived with a package. It was tall and long and all wrapped up. And the delivery person, on Talia's instruction, took the package out to the backyard to a place that was cleared off. And Talia asked the person to get a shovel out of the shed and to move a lawn chair over to this spot. And then paid that person, and they went off. And Talia started to dig a hole. Now, it was a very big hole, and as I've mentioned, she had very achy bones, and it took her a very long time. She would dig a little bit, and she would sit down and rest. She would take a breath. She would listen to the birds. And then she would go back to her digging. She would keep digging her hole, on and on, until finally the hole was big enough. Have you ever dug a really big hole? It uses every part of your body, every muscle, every bone. It's hard work. But she got her hole dug, and then she reached for the package. It was too heavy for her to lift, but she could drag it slowly over to the hole and kerplunk into the hole. Whew, she had to sit down and rest. She sat down and rested, took a breath, listened to the birds for a little bit. Excellent. And then it was time. She started to fill in the hole. All the dirt went back in the hole. Again, very hard work. It took her a very long time. And finally, it was time for her to unwrap the package. I bet you've guessed by now what was in that package. Have you guessed it? No? It was a tree. Talia was planting a tree. She unwrapped the tree, and she was standing there admiring it when her neighbor got home. Now, her neighbor pulled into the driveway and looked over the fence and saw Talia out there with a brand new, freshly planted tree. The ground was all disturbed, and she was standing there with a shovel. And the neighbor said, "Talia, what are you doing? Goodness gracious, I could have helped you with this, but you're out here planting a tree. Are you okay? Also," she looked at the tag, "that's an almond tree. It's going to take years for that to produce almonds. Why are you planting a tree?" And Talia said, "Well, I was sitting at my window this morning, looking at my garden, listening to the birds, and I noticed at the edge of my garden, there was a tree, a very old tree. It didn't have a lot of buds on it yet. It had gnarled branches. Some of the branches had fallen off. But it's an almond tree, and it was planted by my great-grandmother. And I remember when I was a child, I used to climb that tree, and it was a special place for me. And when I was a young woman, I would pick the blossoms off the tree, and I put them in my hair, and I think that's what made my husband notice me. And when I was a young mother, after my great-grandmother had died and left the house to me, I picked the almonds from the tree, and I would use them to make cookies for my children. And even today, as my children are adults, they ask for those almond cookies for every special event. And then, when I had grandchildren of my own, those grandchildren climbed the tree, and I got to sit and watch them and tell them not to go too high, because they were going to fall and get hurt. And now I am a great-grandmother, and I wanted to plant a tree for my great-grandchildren. It was important to me to do that today. And the neighbor thought, wow, what have I done for my great-grandchildren? Which was a funny thought to have because she didn't even have children yet. But she thought about how one day, if she were to have children, or even if not, she would want to do something for several generations from now so that they would have something that they could look back on. And Talia? Well, Talia went back into her house, and she sat by her window, and she listened to the birds, and she was grateful for everything she had. Thank you for listening to my story today.